Hi, welcome to Forbes Academy. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about identifying the keywords in true, false, not given questions. I know this is a source of challenge for a lot of you who are going to take the IELTS test, but today we're going to make it simpler by giving you a few tips. Before everything, I would like to make some general recommendations, and these are: number one, the questions are mostly presented in the same order in which the text or the information is given. What do I mean by this? Well, it's very simple. If question number one appears in paragraph 1 of the text, then question number 2 is going to just show up right after that, not before that. The same goes for other questions. For instance, if question number 3 appears in paragraph 3, then question number 4 expected to be appearing in that same paragraph or the paragraphs that show up after that. So you don't have to just go back and forth throughout the text to find the answers. Number 2, the words in the statements are paraphrased in the passage. The implication is that you should not expect the same words in the questions to be exactly appearing in the text. They're always paraphrases. So a word as simple as difficult is paraphrased as challenging, daunting, hard, not easy, and so on and so forth. Tip number 3, you need to read the sentences completely and identify the answer. So even if I tell you what the keywords are and you have already underlined the keywords, still you need to form a good understanding of that statement so that you can verify whether it is true, false, or not given. So let's begin. Our first set would be words indicating a generalization. As a competent reader, you're expected to identify all of those sentences that are indicating a generalization, such as all, every, none, and always. These words indicate an all or nothing situation, and you got to be able to tell the difference between the statements that are generally true, sometimes true, or most of the times they are true. So let's begin with some instances of these. All big cities are polluted. So that means 100% of all those cities. The next statement is virtually all big cities are polluted. This means like 90% of them. And the next one is most big cities are polluted. So anything beyond 50% would be indicating most. While many big cities are polluted, this statement indicates that a considerable number of those cities are polluted. So all of these statements are different. If in the question you have a statement like all big cities are polluted, and in the text you have any of the other 3, then that statement would be false. Let's move ahead and talk about the next set. Words indicating cause and result. You should be able to identify the causes and the effects of actions, situations, and people very easily. So we're going to examine one instance of this. Land erosion happens because of overgrazing. So overgrazing is the main culprit. It is something that leads to land erosion. Overgrazing leads to land erosion. Well, these two statements are just the same. However, they are expressed in a different manner. So the word because and that phrase because of is indicating what the cause and the source of that issue is, and leads to is also giving us the same indication. Down below, you can see 3 sets. Set number 1, phrases such as due to, owing to, thanks to, because of. Well, when you see these, then that means you have to be able to identify the cause of that specific condition. Set number 2, since, because, as a consequence, consequently, as, or in that. Well, another indication of the cause and result situation. And set number 3, these are verbs that we need to be familiar with. Lead to, bring about, induce, trigger, result in, and spark of, as well as spur. There are, of course, other equivalents and you need to identify those words and check their meanings. Set number 3 is highly important. These are words that show order and sequence. It's highly important to know which actions and events have happened before a certain timeline, after a certain timeline, or during a certain timeline. Words that are equivalents to before are prior to, preceding, in advance, ahead of, or formerly. However, when it comes to after, we have synonyms such as following, ensuing, and words such as later on and subsequently. Whereas in the case of during, we have good equivalents such as while, as, simultaneously, at the same time, and concurrently. So every time you see one of these, make sure you underline them in the questions and try to just verify them in the text. And that brings us to the fourth set of keywords, words indicating a comparison. It's important to know if two things are compared or two issues are compared. If there is a comparison, then we can say that item could be either true or false. But if there's not a comparison, then that item is definitely going to be not given. So, two issues when compared could give us an idea whether one of them is less, lower, worse, or inferior than the other, or one of them is more, higher, better, or superior than the other. However, we should not ignore the possibility that sometimes the two of them are equal, so we gotta watch out for words such as the same or the as combination. However, it's not always that easy, and sometimes the IELTS examiners try to just consider using more advanced vocabulary words that can easily trick us. So the prefix out plus verb combinations is going to indicate that something is better, higher, or more superior than the other. Outnumber, outperform, outdo, outpace, outrun, or outweigh, or any other combinations could also be considered as important vocabulary words to have in your notebook. Last but not least is the use of negative prefixes. And you know, these are word parts that show up before adverbs, adjectives, nouns, and verbs, and make their meanings the opposite of what they normally might mean. Let's have a look at some examples. Ineffective, unstable, dissimilar, irreparable, immobile, and atypical. When you're under stress, chances are you might not be paying attention to these prefixes. So they can shift the meaning completely, and they can be pretty challenging. Let's have a look at this example. These methods cannot be ineffective. This one is somewhat tricky because we have one negation word, not, and the prefix. So in such a situation, that prefix and its effect, it's going to be neutralized by that negation word. So the following statement, such approaches have an effect, is going to be a perfect paraphrase for that. And if these two show up in one question, all you have to do is to check true for that statement. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and leave us comments in the comment section below.